Hello, and welcome to Here's the Thing with Robbie and Jose, where we explore relationships through a male and female perspective. With me, as always, is the lovely Robbie.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well. We're finally here. It's the reunion show.
That's where we all come back.
Yes. This
And
is
let's air out all the stuff
Everything's on the table.
on
So
national television.
yes, this is the reunion for the Love is Blind season 2. We're finally here. Thank you guys for sticking with us throughout this season. Just right up top, I just want to say we are super excited. Love is Blind is coming to D-Town.
Yeah, Dallas.
Yes.
Should be better than the other two.
I really hope that Dallas people represent, because I mean, we love Love is Blind, and when I heard they were coming to Dallas, I was super stoked, and so that season is going to be coming out shortly, so we're really excited.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think people are going to be disappointed that we don't ride horses to work.
and there's tumbleweeds.
And everybody has a 6-shooter on their hip and whatever other myths.
Isn't it crazy that
legends.
people still think that?
Yeah.
After all this time about Texas, that's what. Now there's certain parts, okay, I'll give you, that are rural and that they're kind of like that. But
there's a couple of parts I won't go into in this state, but yeah, for the most, I mean, I was born and raised, but I was born in the city.
Yeah.
In the suburbs and all that other stuff. So.
Yeah. When I talk to people who are not from Texas, and I've been in the Dallas area pretty much my whole life, and so they think like, oh, well, you ride horses. I'm like, no, dude, I don't even listen to country music.
That said, I have a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, so, and I do have a 6-shooter.
Well, I own none of those things, nor would I ever.
And I drive a truck, so because you gotta have a truck. Like you cannot not drive a truck. You gotta have a truck.
I wonder how many trucks are sold up north. I mean, I know they're up there, but like, I don't know. Like, I'd be curious in like the sales in like New York. How many trucks? You know?
Probably not a lot. I've been to New York. I don't think I've ever saw it. Like you would.
That would be weird.
I wouldn't even know why you would need a truck in New York. Like, oh no.
Maybe helping people move.
Yes, no. And then, but I do draw the line. I don't have like the little brass testicles.
Oh yeah, that makes me laugh.
I draw the line there. I don't have that.
I think that's pretty funny when I see that.
Yeah, Texas is wonderful. It's beautiful. I love it. We have seasons. The weather's not too bad. Every now and again it gets hectic, but aside from the tornadoes, I'll give you that. I don't particularly care for the tornadoes, but I live in an area where I don't have to worry about them. So that's for the people up north. They have to deal with that. So good luck to them. But yeah, so this is reunion, right? Love is Blind. So
we're really excited here. But so we kind of kick off, and first of all, there's a lot of things that happen in the reunion. We're just going to touch on a few things. But Shane and Natalie seem to be the couple of the season. Seems like there was a lot going on with them. So I think kind of right out the gate, they start kind of drilling Shane a little bit. I think Nick Lachey had brought up about him mixing up Shane and Natalie in the very beginning when he's like, "What are you wearing?" or all that kind of stuff we talked about in the past. But it
was a good question, right?
Yeah.
It was a good question because the question was, why is it that with Natalie it seemed to be deep conversations, like you said, we talked about that, and then with Shayna, it was typically, "What are you wearing?"
Yeah.
That came out within seconds of starting their conversations, right? It was more flirty. It was more that. And, I kind of like Shane's answer.
Yeah, I think Shane was being the most genuine, it felt like, for the first time. I think that we saw him, I'm not saying that he didn't deflect at all, but I think he was being more open. But I think that the hosts were kind of putting a lot of pressure on him. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, why did you do this? And, but yeah, I mean, like, I think the part about him being different with Natalie and Shayna, and then even I think Nick had asked, well, you asked Natalie to be your girlfriend. So at that point, why did you pursue Shayna still? Which is a valid question. Or maybe Vanessa asked that. I'm not quite sure, but.
Because.
But I think they were kind of holding Shane to the fire a lot.
As well they should.
Yeah.
Listen, you're responsible for your actions. Sorry. Now, you don't have to justify them. That's up to you whether or not you want to talk about it, because there was a couple things. He did not want to, certain subjects he didn't want to broach, right? And I was like, okay, that's fine. But you are responsible for your actions. So if somebody asks you and you're on a dating show and you're on television, so I'm sorry, but everything you did is recorded. I get that he said that they're two different people, and I've had, multiple relationships, and I do act. I'm the same person, but how we interact with one another is different depending on the person.
Yeah,
right?
you got to tailor for every
Yeah,
relationship.
some women are a little more conservative, and other women, maybe not so much, right? So you do act slightly. I mean, I'd like to think I'm the same person, but again, they sometimes will react to certain things differently.
Yeah, I just feel that Shane was really remorseful by his actions the night before the wedding, and he seemed, I don't know, like he really did love Natalie. It seemed like he was really upset that it didn't work out, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it's hard to see them again. I think they had admitted that they had tried again. So where we left off in 10 when they were talking, she said, I don't want to marry you, but we can still pursue this. So they revealed that they did try to pursue it again and it still didn't work out.
Here's my only thing with Shane. Here's what I still struggle with and will continue to struggle is that he still cares about whether or not how he's perceived. Because he was going through this whole thing of I did this, I did that, and sorry, didn't mean to do that. But then when Natalie was speaking, he was just like, "Well, are you gonna apologize? Because it makes me feel like I'm the bad guy."
Yeah, he didn't want to be portrayed like that on TV.
Yeah, but I get why he was doing it because again, he's like, I don't want to be labeled as the bad guy.
Which I can understand. I mean, it's just like, if you had a relationship and you came to me, you guys had a fight, you came to me, you told me your side, and let's say I'm friends with her and I get her side, right? If I had just gotten your side, then you're going to play it to me as you're the victim. Most people, that's how they do it. They're like, well, I'm the greatest and he did this or she did that, but we saw both sides for the most part.
Yeah, sort of.
I think that.
Well, and then therein lies the thing, right? So we had talked about it before is that Shane needs constant reassurance.
Yeah.
Natalie, and I'm sorry, not Natalie. Danielle needs constant reassurance. Ayana needs constant reassurance. And Shane, right? So all of these people need constant reassurance, and he wasn't getting that. Now, again, if we flip the script, Natalie, even though she was joking, was because he is that way, and he needs that. When she jokes, she was hurting his feelings.
Yeah.
So again, and just to play devil's advocate, if I had a girlfriend and she asked me, hey, do I look good in this dress? And I'm like, no, not really. Let me joke. You know what I mean? There's no way on earth I'm going to be able to get away with that. The rest of the night is ruined.
Yeah.
I don't care how many jokes or whatever, unless you got it like that. You know what I mean? Like that's y'all's relationship and that's how y'all get along, great. But I doubt that any man would ever be able to get away with like, no, not really. And she did that, right? So they did like a montage of all the different times she's kind of dissed him, right?
Yeah.
He took off his shirt and she was like, oh, it's all right. Put your shirt back on. And oh, you're a piece of crap. And
yeah, that was kind of mean.
That's what I'm saying. Collectively, like when you look at it like that in a montage, it's like, oh shit, like she was pretty bad. If you look at it, as every episode or whatever, it's not so bad. But again, he is that way. Nick could never get away with saying any of that stuff to Danielle. And Jared certainly couldn't get away with saying any of that stuff to Ayana.
Well, I feel like Shane, so at the reunion, they've already seen the show. It's already come out. So I think that Shane probably, how he was portrayed, he's probably really upset about that and was like, and I'm not saying that, Natalie, we like Natalie, but she's not perfect either. She did do some things like that, to your point, constantly dissing him when she knows he has these get-ups. It is hurtful. It is mean. And so, like, I think he was just like, look, you need to take some ownership too. You know what I mean? It's the same thing when you're in a relationship and you have a fight. It's like, if we're both wrong, like I can come to you and say, babe, I'm sorry. This is what I did wrong. If you were wrong too, I would expect it in return of like, look, we're coming together. We're trying to squash this. Don't just be like, I'm not going to apologize for anything I said when you know you were in the wrong. Yeah. Your pride will get in the way.
In general, and I think we're learning now as a society, it's not always true, but it used to be a thing that no matter what, when a couple broke up, it was always the guy's fault. No matter what, like, what did he do? What did he do? What did he do? We know now that that's incorrect. That is incorrect. I'm not saying that guys don't do their fair share of, bad deeds, but trust me, women are just as bad. And they're just the same as there's toxic masculinity, there's toxic femininity. I mean, it works both ways. We just don't talk about it very
And I feel
much.
like before, when I say before, I'm talking about like the 40s and the 50s and all that kind of stuff. I feel like women had to be more submissive. And I think that as we've grown, we've come away from that. And that's why it's not always the dude.
No,
You know what I
no.
mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying in this case, right? If you wanted to look at it that way, and I'm not knocking her, right? Because I think she was trying to be playful. That's
Yeah.
the problem, is she's trying to be playful, and he's just not taking that joke. What's funny is when he wants to be playful, and that's where the double-edged sword comes, because he genuinely likes to be playful. So maybe she was under the impression like, okay, this is how he wants
But
it.
he told her, he's like,
He
I don't
did.
like it when you say that it makes me feel this way.
Yeah, yeah, but there was other things that she told him too, like you need to be more about this, because he would. I'll give you an instance. I think they were talking about finances and stuff, and he was just like, "Yeah, we're just gonna do this and that," and she's like, no."
Yeah.
He was taking things very casual. So to your point, there was obviously they didn't get married.
Yeah.
And this was things that she identified because she's the one that said no to begin with, right? So she saw that. She saw that they just were not jiving. Again, I think, genuinely loved him, and he probably genuinely loved her. But as she said in the last one, love isn't enough. Or
What do you think? Because they talked a little bit more about the night before the wedding. What do you think it was that triggered him? Do you think he was just drunk? Or do you think,
so they talked about that. She said something and critiqued him. And
well,
that was it.
because she said that he was drunk, I think, and she had said something like, do you think you've had enough or whatever? She was,
Whatever.
which,
It was a straw that broke the camel's back, right?
yeah.
But that saying means that there was a bunch of straws. It was just that last one. Even though it's just one, right? It was an accumulation of things. And it just came to a head. Hey, he had struck out at his bachelor party.
Yeah, he was mad about that. I really think that was a big thing that probably got him heated.
And listen, and I say this, I laugh not because of any of the records. I'm not laughing at the fact that he struck out, right? I am not an athlete at all. And I'm probably the worst. I probably would have struck it out as well. But like, what are you going to do? Sometimes you strike out, sometimes you hit a home run, and everything in between. But
I mean, if he was really worried about it, it's kind of like when you, let's say that I had a really bad day at work
Yeah.
and like horrible, and I come home, and then as soon as I walk through the door, my husband says, or like, where's dinner or whatever, I'm going to be, if I'm already whatever, I think that's what happened. He was already mad. He was drunk and all this stuff. And then she said something that may have been innocent enough, may have been just like, hey, can you please stop drinking for the night or something?
Well, and here's the other thing too, right? She there was a lot of things about him she did not like.
Right.
It's pretty obvious.
Right.
I mean, it was
Because he's a
extremely
big kid.
obvious.
He has a lot of growing to do.
And fair enough, right? But again, everybody has their breaking point. And I never understood why, and don't get me wrong, there is a certain amount of tweaking that goes on when you get into a relationship, but why you want to change them at their core, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Some of the superficial things we might be able to get away with, and even that some things that are more significant you can change, but it is going to take time, way more than 6 weeks. I can tell you that right now. It's going to take a tremendous amount of time to change how people are at their core.
I kind of wish the show was longer because I really didn't get to see a lot of these people's connections, like their actual connections. So, I mean, from what we saw, it kind of seemed like Natalie loved Shane for superficial reasons. I didn't really see them connect emotionally. I maybe wish the show was longer.
Shane and Natalie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they connected pretty good.
But I mean, I don't know. It wasn't enough for me because they're so different for it to click.
You know what they ought to do? I was thinking about that too, because I did think 6 weeks is way too short of time, right? But I understand people have to work and they have to interact and they have to do stuff. You know what they ought to do? They ought to do a show that's going to take a little longer than 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And they should do something like where they get couples or they get individuals and they follow them around.
Yeah.
And then people vote on which couple they think should be paired up. I wonder what that would look like. You know what I mean?
Netflix, hit us up. Maybe we got a new hit show on our hands.
Or even this experiment, if they were able to stretch it out to 6 months, that would be interesting. In other words, you don't get to see them for 3 of those months.
Yeah.
just purely, and it doesn't have to be in the pod, right? Because people have to work for a living, right? I mean, they have to work.
Maybe just all phone calls or
all
something.
phone calls, or they go to a place and they meet, and they would just have to make an agreement not to seek each other out.
Like a payphone somewhere.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like they just can't see each other,
Yeah.
right? They can talk all they want, but just can't see each other. That would be interesting, right? Because then they would go on their day to day.
Yeah.
They would do stuff and they would get to know them a lot better
Yeah.
than, like a couple of weeks in a pod. But
yeah, I agree.
yeah.
But after that, we kind of go into Shayna and Kyle. So Kyle brought up a point about, why did you say yes to me? I think that Shayna also was deflecting a lot. And she said something that really bothered me. She said that it was manipulative of him to give her his mother's ring.
Why did that strike you so bad?
Because I
Rub
thought
you
it
the
was
wrong way, if you will.
that seems like a very genuine thing for her to say. It's a negative. You're trying to manipulate me by giving me this important thing. I don't know. That didn't sit well with me. Not that I care too much for Shayna anyway.
Think she
but
was projecting at that point?
I don't know. It really bothered me.
Yeah.
And even Kyle was like, what do you mean? Like, you should be honored that I did this thing for you.
What is it about that you think, I want to explore that. Why does it bother you so much? Why do you think that?
Because like I said, I think Kyle was trying to be, I think it was a sweet thing.
Yeah. Do you think she was trying to be manipulative in that situation, or
I think that
trying to
the
flip
same
the
thing
script,
with,
if you will?
I think the same way with Shane, she probably watched the show and was like, shoot, look how I came off. Let me try to like explain. But she didn't come off any better at the reunion, to be honest. But I think that I think that she strung them along. I know that they didn't go through the whole thing, and that's good, right? But I don't think she should have said yes. And I think that she probably got a lot of slack for saying yes from social media. I mean, who knows, right?
Everybody, yeah.
Right.
We all knew that it was.
Right.
And so here's the thing about that, right? And this is the downside of not seeing each other, because he had to see the clip where when he proposed, her face.
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't know what she looked like because she was on the other side of that.
Yeah, he probably thought she was excited.
Yeah, which she wasn't. And that's the downside.
Right.
I think marriage proposals should be done in person, not between a wall. If I had any critique on them, I would say that much, because then you can see that facial expression and you know it's genuine.
Yeah.
So if you say it, because it's going to be hard to mask. She did it. Like I said, my theory is they're in that pod, they're comfortable. For whatever reason, they forget they're being videotaped or they're being recorded. Nobody uses videotape anymore, but you know, I'm dating myself. Videotape. What's this grandpa talking about?
It's a beta.
It's a real. No, but yeah, they're being recorded. They seem to forget that. Like, everything's being recorded that you're doing, right? So why would you make that face?
Yeah.
But she can't help it. A, she's comfortable, and B, she can't help it. That's what I'm saying. In real life, he would have saw that immediately and be like, but he did say something, Kyle. He said apparently they had many, many, many conversations. They must have been boring because they didn't air any of them.
Yeah.
It was like, y'all didn't see it, but it was a genuine connection, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But
I don't even see it at all.
I mean, Shane made Shake. And I'm sure you're waiting to talk about him, but he said a lot of things. And he said that he thought that Kyle and Shayna, that Shayna said yes, partly because she wanted to continue on the show.
Which could be it. I mean, it kind of perceived that way a little bit. I think she was uncomfortable, and I think she just said it to be nice or something and felt bad about backing out, because I think even Vanessa had brought up a point about, he was saying like, well, you could have gotten out at that point. And she was like, well, not really. And it's kind of like you and I had talked about that before. Like, women don't want to be mean, and it's hard, right? And so I think that she just made a horrible mistake. I would imagine
every woman is going to be prepared for a proposal. Am I wrong about that?
In like just every day?
I'm just saying, like, I'm assuming as a female, that there's a high potential that you're going to be proposed to at some point.
Okay.
Right?
I guess.
So you kind of, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, that's never happened to me before. Maybe it hasn't, but you do know that traditionally that's usually how it works, right?
Right. So you're saying that Shayna was shocked that Kyle
Well, I don't know. That's why I didn't understand what her thing is. She's there to fall in love, And the way that they're going to do that is through marriage.
Right.
So there is a possibility that that's going to happen with every date that they're going on. You never know when you're going to be proposed to.
Yeah.
Then she got proposed to and she made a face because it wasn't the person that she wanted.
Right.
I feel, and this is just me, if that's the case, she should have just thrown in the towel and be done with it.
Yeah.
But obviously, and they brought this up, after that proposal, she still went to go.
Yeah. And Kyle revealed that he didn't know that until he watched the show.
I'm not
he
surprised.
had no clue. And so that was upsetting too, because I can't imagine what he felt like watching that.
Shayna go and talk to Shane for the last, try to get the last time.
One last, like, I'll leave him.
She said it was part of her process. Don't know what that means.
Yeah, I think Shayna was deflecting all over the place, and I don't buy. She was like, no, it wasn't about that at all. I wasn't trying to get him. It's like, okay, whatever. And
so
then,
what was the purpose of that?
Exactly.
That's why I couldn't figure out. Like,
Exactly.
okay, so what? And I would have asked her, I would have loved to ask her, what if Shane would have proposed to you right then and there and changed his mind and said, I want you for my wife?
Yeah.
Because what was she going to say? Oh, no, I'm committed to Kyle.
No.
Nonsense. She obviously wanted Shane.
Right.
So, but they didn't ask that question. I wish they would have.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it was kind of the same thing too, because I think Natalie called her out, was basically like, you said that you didn't have any feelings for Shane anymore and it was done and you were whatever. So Shayna was lying and deflecting, and she did not come off looking good in this.
She was very much like a politician, was able to deflect and try to move on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that believe her and think, oh,
yeah, she's beautiful. And it's like, well, just a pretty face saying, well, it's not how it was. Like, well, okay. And I agree. She had reservations before she saw Kyle. So I know it's not just about his looks, but I don't think that she was physically attracted to him. And that was just another factor into that.
Well, and here's the thing, right? And eventually, you know, the way she did it was way worse because she basically abandoned him during the honeymoon, which is way worse, right? But, you know, I wonder how many marriages are started out that way, where they moved on from a breakup. The person that they wanted didn't work out.
Yeah.
Right. So now they've, you know, quote, this is obviously condensed and distilled, right? But let's just say if we spread that out to 6 months, right? Mm. And she was dating, because she technically was dating Shane, and it didn't work out. And then she would have met a Kyle and jumped right into a relationship with Kyle.
He's the rebound guy.
He is the rebound guy. I mean, in the worst kind of way.
Yeah.
And while they're dating, she's still trying to get Shane. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, she stopped it. But I wonder how many women go forward knowing that their heart isn't in it. They're just trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do. Maybe they're just trying to get a husband. I haven't the slightest idea.
Either that or it's embarrassing to back out. I'm sure a lot of women, I mean, have done that.
I know, but that's my point, is just that it's how many marriages have started out that way.
Right. Because
it's one thing, you know, we're talking about Ayanna and how she has a get up about, you know, quote unquote, feeling second best. The only time that I would say that would be valid would be for somebody like Kyle. Let's say Shayna and Kyle did get married. Mm-hmm. Kyle would have every right to feel that way because she technically went out. It's not like Jared did kind of too, though. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get into that yet, but obviously, I don't know, right? Because everything was done on everything was recorded for the show.
Yeah.
But this is a distilled version of what relationships end up going through.
Right.
And what I mean by that is you can be dating a woman and let's say y'all both meet and you're having fun, but you don't know if she still has feelings for another guy that before you came along, you had no idea that she was so close and loved him so much. But how do you, I don't know. You shouldn't be getting into relationships if you know you're not ready.
Yeah.
She didn't have that time to process and be over it. Instead, she did the common mistake that most everybody does, is that you jump into another one.
Right.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, that said, Jared and Ayanna, they did that, but Jared did that too, right? And it has nothing to do with second best or first or whatever, first and second choice.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you have a feeling for somebody and it doesn't work out between that person, you need to process that. before you can even think about going to another person and trying to start something with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would say is like, that's the wrong part, because you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And you can obviously tell because Jared was also having inappropriate conversations.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can go ahead and talk about that, because they did play the clip again of the infamous ring conversation. And, Sal was kind of calling him out again, kind of like, bro, you said you were joking, but seeing that, it looked really bad. I mean, I'm sure, well, I think at the beach party, he said like, oh, I was just playing or whatever, but like seeing it. So Sal kind of confronts him and Mallory, and Sal looked so pissed off at Mallory. Like he still was angry. I don't know how long from the wedding day till the reunion when they shot it, but he's still really mad.
Oh yeah.
And so he's like, you guys never should have had that conversation and blah, blah, blah. And poor Ayanna, like having to watch that. And
it's completely inappropriate. Completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
There was no appropriateness of any sort, of any kind.
What if, like,
whatsoever?
If you were, let's say, engaged to somebody and they had an inappropriate conversation with their ex, right? Because that's the equivalent. So they're having this inappropriate conversation. Let's say you overhear it, or maybe somehow you find out.
Mm-hmm.
Would you confront the guy, or would you be more kind of like, to Ayanna's point? She was like, Mallory doesn't owe me anything. It's not about her.
It's absolutely right.
Which is really classy, I thought. I
think so too, right? She wasn't looking for an apology from her because she didn't do anything. Well, she did, but she should be apologizing.
Yeah, they weren't friends.
Sal.
She has no relationship with Ayanna really. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I really like that Ayanna said that. I thought that was very mature. It's like, yes, that's how we should all look at it. Look to your partner because they're the one that messed up.
Right.
I thought that was really cool.
I thought that was really cool too.
But would you confront the guy, or you would just confront your fiance? Like, look.
Yeah, no, I would just my fiance. I don't care about the guy. Yeah. The guys are going to be guys.
Right.
Guys are going to try to take your woman. That's just what happens. They could care less. Well, not all of them, obviously, but those ones. And unfortunately, and I hate to be judgmental about that, but it was wrong in all kinds of ways. They did not respect, as fresh as it was, their own engagement.
Right.
Right. So if I'm engaged with somebody, and she's talking to her ex, and I know I'm going to catch a lot of grief for this, but I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't have, and she can sit there and complain and like, oh, I can't find a man and he did me wrong. And I was like, no, I didn't do anything. I'm full force ready to move on with this relationship. You are not.
Right.
You need to take care of, tie some loose ends, whatever it is that you got to do, because I don't have time for that. If you've processed it and you're ready to move on, hey, let's do this. But if you haven't, which you clearly have not, then you need to get that resolved. I'm not about to jump into a relationship knowing that your heart is not in it, right? I can only go forward with me.
Right.
One thing about me, once I make a decision, I go forward with it. I don't like to ponder it too much. Every now and again, well, I mean, don't get me wrong, I have to ponder decisions. There's times when, I've been wanting to break up or something, and I'm trying to weigh the pros and cons, whether or not I want to do that. But regardless, once I make a decision, that's it. I'm going, especially if it involves another person.
Maybe that was a Shayna approach. She's like, I made this decision. I got to go through with it. But I was just thinking about, putting the blame on who. It's kind of the same way with, if you caught your partner cheating, and let's say that the other person didn't know, because that happens all the time. Like, just because you're married doesn't mean that every woman knows that you're married. And you could have an affair with someone, and maybe you're telling her, I want to marry you, whatever. And let's say the wife walks in, right? I get it that it's probably in our instinct a little bit to be mad at the other person, because it's like, that's our equal, right? So I can't go toe to toe with a man, but I can go toe to toe with a woman, right? Physically. So if I walked in, my husband was with someone, right? But it's not, if the woman did know, okay, shame on her. But if she didn't know, it's not her fault. Why are you beating up the girl or whatever, taking it out on her? Let's say that she was innocent too. She thought this guy was single. He was lying to her the whole time. And a lot of people, I feel like, are more mad at the other person, even if they didn't know, which I think is unfair. So that's, I'm saying it's mature of Ayanna to be like, I'm not mad at Mallory.
Yes and no. I will just kind of take it a step further and say some people like to believe the lie. It's more convenient.
Well, I'm talking about in a totally innocent situation. You meet a guy out at a bar. He's not wearing a ring. He's flirting with you. He says he's single, whatever. You go back to his place. His wife comes home. I'm just saying.
In that situation, okay, fine and dandy, right? I get it. And, who knows, right? But I'm talking about in a situation where the guy's been lying.
Oh, no, I know.
And
I get
she
it.
knows and she does it anyways. But at the end of the day, whoever's in the relationship, it's completely 100% their fault. In other words, let's say is longer, and let's say that the guy is cheating on the girl, right? The married man is cheating on his wife, and the mistress knows that he's married.
Yeah.
I still don't blame her. She's making a bad choice.
Yeah.
But that's her life to live how she sees fit. I pass no judgment. He, on the other hand, has made a commitment.
Yeah.
Made a promise and is married. So it's completely him. Now he can sit there and say, well, I got this and it's not my fault, but it kind of is.
Yeah, but you're still going to be mad at the other person because they knew it, and they still, even though they didn't know you, it's like, it's just decent, like, behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But
people tend to do for their own self-interest rather than decency sometimes.
Yeah. But I wanted to talk about Dipti and Shake now, because Shake was throughout the reunion kind of inserting himself in a lot of other people's business, and it was very clear that nobody liked Shake.
The thing about Shake, and I feel bad for the guy, and let me tell you why. He thinks of himself as this great thinker, and he's trying to reduce everything so that we understand it. Yeah. And it's like he's the one.
Let me break it down for all you dumb people.
Yes. And that's what he's doing. And you see it, unfortunately, sometimes like in TikTok and stuff, where they say these quotes and they're breaking things down into a palatable and like, oh, it's revolutionary. And it's like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about it. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Because he was just like, this show is not about finding a wife. It's about finding love. Yeah, it's in the title, buddy. Like, what are you talking? Because he was talking like everybody was in there for a different reason. Nobody thought that this was about finding a wife. That's what eventually happens, is that you get married because you love somebody and you commit to them.
Right.
But the whole purpose of the show is love. But it was like he was thinking that he was breaking it down for everybody. Like, oh my gosh, he's so insightful. You're not.
Yeah.
And he kept on doing that, right? He's like, I'm going to keep it real. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What real are you? Because, and I'm sure he's an intelligent man, but because he's a veterinarian, right? And you need to be intelligent to do that, right? I mean, but he doesn't seem to understand social cues or emotions or the emotional intelligence. He doesn't seem to have.
Where do you think he gets that from? Because his mom seemed really lovely. Like, I'm wondering, I don't know. Is that?
Here's what I think happens, right? And I don't remember if he's an only child, perhaps. Do you remember if he's an only child or not?
I don't
Not that
remember.
that matters, but sometimes it does play into it, right? So I grew up with sisters, and growing up with sisters, you learn certain things, like what you can and cannot say. Sometimes you have to be sensitive to their needs. If if they're going through an emotional thing, you can't just be like, what's wrong with you, man? Suck it up. You have to be like, okay, your sister's crying. Like, what's going on, sis? And then you learn these things. Sal does it perfectly with his sisters, which is probably where he learned how to be emotionally sensitive and like understand people's needs. He has almost like a very childhood, almost teenager-ish like view of relationships. And it's almost somewhat cynical too.
Yeah.
Or because he looks at it, and again, he's just trying to break it down, and it's like, I don't know. It was just weird.
I'm just thinking, what if
He was not self-aware, I think Dipti said it.
What if he had a long-term serious relationship with a woman that he was head over heels in love, and she broke his heart, like where he couldn't put it back together? And
like Humpty Dumpty?
Yes.
Aww. All the king's men and all the king's horses couldn't. I don't know why a horse would help, but it couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together.
Yeah, how would a horse put an egg back together?
I don't know, but I guess they needed horsepower to do so.
Dad jokes. But maybe he's cynical because something rocked him to his core, and maybe that's why. You see that all the time. You know what I mean? So maybe that's his experience.
I think for him, he kind of almost has the same kind of issue that Shane does. And for him, it's perception. He's worried about what other people think. Because even at the very beginning of the show, he was like, I just want to make sure that we're getting edited correctly, or
Yeah.
depends on how we get edited. So he's already concerned about how he's going to come off.
Again, probably really ashamed after he watched the show.
I don't think he was ashamed at all. It wasn't until like the very end of that episode that he finally.
If you're not ashamed, why would you complain about the editing then?
He's not ashamed, but he said it, right. So when he was talking about, he pointed to Dipti and she's like, okay, she's the goddess and I'm the bad guy, or I'm the demon, or what?
Villain or something.
Villain, yeah, I'm the villain. She's a good guy, I'm the villain. And again, he's trying to become a reductionist, but that's not exactly. You can't do that with relationships.
Yeah,
you just can't. And that's what he was doing. He was trying to reduce it and say, look, I got it figured out. Really, really intelligent people, right? Like, and I'm talking about like, I'm thinking of like the old Russian writers and poets and things. They do have a way of breaking things down. When you read a phrase, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack in that. He's trying to do that, but he doesn't have the emotional intelligence to do that. So for him, it's very rudimentary. I'm not attracted to her, so it's over.
Yeah.
Which is not, he's not ready for a relationship.
Yeah.
He's not. But, and I will say this, and I know I'm going to catch a lot of crap for this. You knew what you were getting with Shake.
Right.
He didn't lie and pretend he was a good guy.
He did a little bit in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah.
But that was afterwards. But and maybe there was some personal growth that was happening in between there. But the questions that he was asking, what's your size? Can I lift you up on my shoulders? Do you like to exercise? Yeah. How do you feel about exercise? All of these things, if they weren't red flags, like I'll put it to you this way. If a woman was asking me how much I made, that's a red flag for me right off the bat.
Right.
Eventually you're going to find out, but that shouldn't be at the gate, your question.
Yeah.
What do you drive? Like, how much money do you make? Like,
let me see your bank account.
Yeah. Because, and don't get me wrong, if it's that kind of relationship, sure, for me, but I would immediately be like, I don't think this is long-term. Maybe we can have fun, but there's no way I'm going to, but that's at the gate.
Yeah.
If she asked me more, relationship-based questions like, when was your last relationship? Where do you see yourself? How do you feel about family? Sure, let's have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's something I want to get into, but something superficial like that is way too... They knew.
Yeah. But I didn't like how he was downplaying the whole show and the whole premise and everything, because it did work out for some people. They found love, but he was like, this is fake and all this is stupid and whatever, and kind of bashing. It's like, well, he had that experience, but he kind of brought a lot of that on himself. And then it made me wonder, why did you go on the show? Were you dating traditionally and you couldn't find anybody that would put up with you and you thought...
I think, so what ends up happening, right? And this is, I think, part of personal development. He probably thought, because he said something, he was like, I really wanted this more than anybody else, despite what y'all think. I don't think he wanted it more than anybody else, but I think he really, really did want it. The problem is he found out something about himself really, really fast, which is to say, yeah, the superficial stuff does matter.
Yeah.
And it matters a lot.
Yeah.
That's a hard realization. If I'm telling you that I'm a deep person, if I'm telling you that I'm a deep person and I have strong feelings and I'm progressive and I can think, and then I do things to the opposite of that, you're going to be like, well, maybe you're not. Because we all like to perceive ourselves as better people.
Right.
Nobody likes to think of themselves as a piece of crap.
Yeah.
We all think, oh no, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I don't think of myself as just FYI. I don't. I know I have my flaws. It's things that I need to work on, right? And I think when people want to be that way and then they get put to the test, and then they find out, no, you really are that superficial. Sorry.
Yeah. That's
something that they need to do. Because I'm not passing judgment one way or the other. If that's the way you are, that's the way you are.
Yeah, but how is he going to cope with that when let's say he does finally find somebody and you're married and she starts aging and her body changes? Like, what is he going to do then? Because all that looks and stuff is going to fade, bro.
Absolutely.
And then what are you going to be left with?
He probably, if he doesn't change his ways, he'll just get a new, younger wife. Simple as that. And it'll be at a superficial level, but I'm telling you, those kinds of relationships, they're hard.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying he wanted a deeper connection. I think to a certain degree, he did want to be attracted to Dipti.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to.
Yeah.
I think he couldn't get past it. And I think there were, maybe he could have, maybe he couldn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really honestly don't know. But obviously it was a big thing for him. And I've been there. I think every guy has been there.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think the want was there.
Yeah. He
I
genuinely, but it just wasn't there. And the other problem is that he was that superficial. So everybody else, it turned them off. Because you saw the montage.
Mm-hmm.
And he was asking stuff, and Ayana was laughing when she was like, what the F? You know, like, why would he ask that question?
Yeah.
And some of the other women, too, were very turned off. And I'm sure they were like, no, I'm not going to go back into a pod to talk to him. Like, why would she? Dipti, God bless her soul, just thought that she, okay, why not? I guess, you know, and you know, I think she genuinely tried. But, yeah, like I said, every guy's been there. I'm sure every woman has been there where you've been with a guy that you're just not as attracted to as you would like.
Yeah.
And maybe you can get past it, maybe not. I will say again, for guys, it's a little harder.
Yeah.
Because we're just built differently. We're just, you know, and I wish we weren't. And I wish we would be more evolved. But even me, you know, like, I like somebody that's cute.
Yeah.
I mean, and mind you, I like somebody that's cute to me.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to be like over the top Selma Hayek kind of beautiful. Right. You know what I mean? But I have to, sorry, just a tad bit be attracted to her.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally understandable.
But I've met some really, and that kind of breaks my heart sometimes, because I've met some really, really, really nice, genuinely just beautiful on the inside women, right? And I'm sure on the outside somebody else, but I just didn't feel, I didn't feel any kind of attraction to them.
Everyone's going to have their preference, and that's totally fine.
I hate it. That's why I kind of relate to him, because I hate it, because some of these women are genuinely just good-hearted, just wonderful people.
Yeah.
And I've tried, and I'm like, yeah, and I just can't.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm not going to say that, right? So, you know, but I do, you know, I have to end the relationship, or, you know, if it doesn't go anywhere, if it doesn't really take off, then I'm okay just kind of exiting. But I don't know how you girls do with it. I mean, I know you guys reject them too. There has to be a certain amount, even though you guys can overlook quite a bit. I'm sure there has to be a little bit. Just a little bit.
There has to be. And I've been in situations before where maybe somebody I, you know, knew from school or whatever, you know, had tried to start something, and I'm just, and I know them as a friend, and they're super sweet, and I love them as a person, but it's like, I'm just not, and it makes me feel bad too, because it's like, I hate to, because they're such a good person, but like, I can't force an attraction. Like
I've had to turn you down many times. I'm sorry. Totally joking there. Totally joking. Robbie's completely beautiful, wonderful. She really is. She's a knockout. I kid you not. I am not. So, you know, I wouldn't even have tried with Robbie, just FYI.
Oh, that was cute. But yeah, two more couples. So I want to talk about, we talked about it a little bit, but Mallory and Sal, they, like I said, Sal looked really pissed still. He's clearly not over.
He was a little upset. Now that I think I'm trying to think if he ever smiled.
I don't think he smiled at all.
No, he did not.
Oh, except when they brought up how he dropped her at the beach. Remember, he was trying to carry her. He did laugh about that. But yeah, he still looked really mad, and he didn't reveal.
And he's the one that said no, by the way. But
yeah, he did.
Was still pissed.
But yeah, he didn't reveal, but something had happened that I think made him say no that day. He didn't want to reveal it. He didn't want to put her on blast. But he was like, look, I won't say it because it doesn't matter anymore. And then he talked about his main thing too was that he never felt heard.
Yeah, that was a big one. When he said that, I started remembering their interactions together.
Yeah.
And how she just kept on. She didn't. It was not that she kept warning him.
Yeah.
And you can't do that.
It's almost like threatening a little bit, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And some of that stuff was out of his control, right? Because the ex showing up, she was like, if something like this happens again, I'm out. And I was like, how do you know what ex-girlfriend is going to come out of the woodwork?
Right.
What does that got to do with me? I'm not doing anything.
I will say that I didn't realize that until he said at the reunion. I
I knew it from the get-go.
Well, I mean, like, it wasn't at the forefront of like him not being heard, because we couldn't have known his feeling. Like, you can see what's happening, but like for him to put it in words of not being heard, we can all relate to that. We can all understand.
Yeah. It was a perfect phrase.
Yeah.
It was a perfect phrase.
But yeah, he's still very upset about it. And I think that Mallory, I mean, I get it that you're on the hot seat, but it felt like it almost felt like nobody wanted to own up. Like, just say, okay, I messed up. I'm human. We all do things that we shouldn't.
Shayna did. I mean, but it's half-handed.
Yeah.
Here's my whole thing with that, right? And I'll take it a step further. Why did they have to wait till the reunion? Because they've all seen each other. Yeah. Why did they have to wait till the reunion before they apologized? That, to me... Well,
they may have apologized. We don't know.
Some of them they did and some of them they didn't. Shayna was like, she was getting on to Kyle because she was like, hey, we talked about this already. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But there were other ones like Jared and didn't apologize to Sal. Sal didn't have any idea until after he saw it. Right. And then that's when he apologized. Yeah. That to me is in bad character. If you know you did it, own up to it. Why do you have to be on national television before you decide to apologize?
We know everyone's going to see it.
That's what I'm saying. Well, even if they don't, it speaks to your character.
Yeah.
If I wrong somebody and I'm still interacting with them, I should apologize to them. Like, look, man, I'm sorry. I did this. It's not my best moment. I don't need a camera around to do that, just as a decent human being. And after that, if you don't want to be my friend, I understand. Sorry, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And that's that. But they didn't do that. But they're on television, so now all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I forgive you.
Yeah, I think they admitted, so they did meet up for coffee. He went through with, even though I felt like it was... he was just saying it to be nice at the end of the wedding, where he was like, yeah, maybe we can explore it again. I'll call you tomorrow. That whole thing.
Call me.
But they went through the coffee date and she tried to make it sound like, yeah, we just realized basically there wasn't any connection. And I think she was devastated that he didn't marry her. And
well, yeah.
I mean, but she was trying to play it off a little bit.
No, you can visibly tell.
No, I know, but this word she was saying was like, oh, it's okay. It didn't work out. We weren't,
I will say this. I don't know, because I remember seeing when Shane got, when he was stood up at the altar, right? Mm-hmm. Or not stood up. I don't know what it's called. What is it called when they just say no?
Well, I think jilted is when you don't show up, right?
That's what I thought stood up means, is that they just didn't show up and you're just there by yourself, like the wedding singer. But if they just say no, I don't know what. Anyways, he got rejected, let's say, at his own wedding. I would see that he's going to have a hard time with that trauma, because regardless of whether or not it's a show, that's a lot. Yeah. Shane is the same thing. Shane, however, is acting out. Yeah. So Shane, because it didn't work out for him, is part of the reason why he's going around telling everybody that they're all full of crap. And I couldn't take this seriously, and this, that, and the other, because it's the same thing. This is what I'm saying.
You mean Shake? Shake,
I'm sorry. Not Shane, I'm sorry. Shake. And I think this is why I say that this is a very distilled version of that, right? Because he's the guy that from here on in is going to be bitter towards every woman that comes across his path, because he's angry that he was hurt and that he was done wrong. And again, Shane, for all of his whatever, that victim mentality that he has, that I was hurt and now I'm going to tell the rest of the world just how bad this whole thing is. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's good, but you see that. And you see that in the dating world too, where somebody's been wronged and they've gone through trauma in their previous relationships. And then I go out with them and they're mad. Yeah. All men suck and all men do this and all men, and I can't stand a man and I'm never going to do this. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, all right. And it scares me because I'm like, there's some things that you need to work through. I get that you are hurt. We all have. I've had my fair share of heartbreaks. I mean, I have tons of them. We don't have time. I should make a country song. You know, they did it in Dallas. I should make but you know, what are you going to do? I can't blame the next girl. I can't. Women, they're all different. People are going to treat you differently. And I just haven't found the right one. That's it. But I'm not going to go around saying that all women are evil because I've been done wrong or
but
whatever.
You'll still have your triggers that we kind of can't help. We try our best, but there's still going to be triggers from your past that your new girl is going to do something and you may overreact. I mean, I think it's perfectly normal. I think we all do that.
Don't get me wrong. We do have triggers and identifying them is part of it, right? But I think over time, and if you deal with them, because you really have to sit there and process and think about what happened. And then once you start doing that, that's the first step towards. But to that end, right, like anything else that you're afraid of or that's traumatized you, you have to lean in.
Yeah.
You can't lean back and you can't run and you can't just whatever. You have to lean into it. You have to keep going. And eventually you'll figure out that it's not always like that. And there's different experiences that you can have.
Yeah. Well, the last couple we have is Danielle and Nick, and
there's Jared and Ayanna too.
Oh,
they both got married.
Yeah, okay. Jared and Ayanna, they're happy, and Nick and Danielle, and so they all said yes, and I think that both couples are going to have. They're still working through some things, and I think the majority of that is the insecurities with the women.
Well, and that, believe it or not, is the easy part. Not easy. Let's just put it that way, right? I've been married, and getting married is the beginning of the work, and I mean the absolute beginning. Yeah. It's a whole nother ball game. I mean, it's from going to the baking cookies at home to a baking competition. Like it's a whole nother thing, man. It's like the British Bake Off. Much more pressure.
Paul Hollywood's looking at you with those baby blues.
But it's because now you're in it and you can't just easily walk away.
Yeah.
And it's work, and your needs are not always going to be like, it's not even your needs anymore. It's our needs. You still have your own. So it's weird because you're part of a unit. At the same time, you're your own person and you're trying to reconcile the two. And the other person they're their own person and they're not always going to do things. You're not always going to get along with everything. You're not going to you're not going to see things on eye to eye on certain things. You have to learn how to work through those things. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning. It gets that much harder when you're in a marriage.
Yeah.
Because I mean, think about it, right? Like, like if you're with somebody, you have an argument with your friend, with your girlfriend, you can just go talk to a buddy and be done with it. Now, and there's nowhere for you to go.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't talk to your buddy, but you got to stay there.
Yeah.
You still have to have dinner. You still have to interact. You still have to,
sleep
what I mean?
In the same bed. Everything. Well, I guess you can sleep on the couch.
You could. But it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's jobs, and then there's family, there's finances. There's just so many other things that go along with marriage, and it's the very beginning of it.
Yeah.
If they think that getting to that point was hard,
yeah. I wish them, both of those couples, the best of luck, and time will tell how it works out for them. We appreciate all of our listeners sticking with us through season 2. Please stay tuned for season 3. Like Absolutely. I said, we're in Dallas. We're super excited. We'd love for you to tell a friend about our podcast. We'd love for you to write in. Let us know what you think. Here's the thing, 214@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Till next time.
Bye.
All right. Bye.